Government continuing to come under increased pressure to get a grip on the migrant chaos, visiting Dover and Manston today, amid the international criticism now of her claims that the UK faced an invasion of migrants. Well, the illegal conditions at the Manston processing centre in Kent, with around 3,500 people currently being detained there for weeks on end, at a site intended for just 1,600 overnight. It's also emerged some of the migrants taken from the processing centre were then abandoned at Victoria Station due to a massive Home Office error, according to the charity worker involved in helping them. Let's speak with our Home and Security editor, Mark White, who's down at Manston. Of course, he broke the story about this processing centre for us last week. Mark, what time are we expecting her there, and what is she likely to see?
Well, we're told between 1:30 and 2 o'clock that the Home Secretary is due to arrive here. She was late in arriving at the Dover processing centre, sister processing centre to this one. Effectively, when these people come across the channel in the small boats, they're taken usually, first of all, to Dover if they're landed at that end. If they're landed further down the coast, then they'll come here to Manston. But even those that have been at Dover often then end up coming to Manston for additional checks. It is exactly that, a processing centre where their fingerprints and biometric details are taken, where they're interviewed briefly, where they're checked by medical staff and given warm food and clothing before they're then allocated spaces usually in hotels across the country. But of course we know that process stalled for a while. It was alleged that the Home Secretary had deliberately tried to block the requisition of more hotels. Now that's something she vehemently denies. As she spoke to the House of Commons in an emergency statement, she said that 30 such hotels had been requisitioned while she's been Home Secretary, so that she has not, she claimed, blocked it in any way. But what has happened is, because we've had very significant numbers of people coming across the English Channel in the last week or two, that has just built up here at Manston and at Dover, with the staff and the resources not able to process them quickly enough. And that's why we've seen currently here about 3,500. There was 4,000 until yesterday, down to 3,500. Yeah. Robert Jenrick, who is the Immigration Minister, Mark, was saying that he was hopeful that they would be able to return to that more sustainable level of about 1,500 being processed here for no more than 24 hours.
Yeah, doing the job it's designed to do. Mark, I have to ask you too, you were bringing us this story about the Albanian people traffickers, gangs, and of course their involvement in the cannabis trade here in Britain. What do you make of this reaction from the Albanian Prime Minister, Edi Rama, accusing Britain of becoming a madhouse and trying to find scapegoats where failed policies were to blame?
Well, look, he's the Prime Minister of that country. He's defending his country and his fellow countrymen and women. But, perhaps his anger would be better vented at those elements in his own country who are organising for the criminal trafficking of individuals across the English Channel. Many of them, as I've been told by senior sources, and as I speak, actually, another bus heading in here to Manston. So this process that Robert Jenrick was on about, Mark, of getting the buses in, getting them on and getting them out to hotels, we can see actively that is taking place. As I was saying, we've been told by sources that many of the Albanians who are arriving on small boats are coming under instruction for criminal gangs in this country, or indeed back in Albania. Many of them going and working in the likes of cannabis farms. The Albanian crime groups are taking an increasing dominant role in criminal activity in this country. They control the vast majority of cannabis farms, certainly in the north of the UK, the cocaine trade in the south. They are, as far as the authorities are concerned, many of those who are coming across going to be involved in criminal activity. Not all of them, of course, and many of them are going to claim that they are victims of people trafficking, that they're modern slaves in that sense, and that puts them into a system that is protracted because, like the asylum process, they claim that they're a victim of modern slavery. They go into the system and they can be here for, well, we're told many months, if not years.